Hello, everyone. And my name is Eric Asher, and I am the Communications Associate here at Respectability. I'm a white man with short black hair. I'm wearing glasses and a gray polo shirt with Respectability's logo on it. I'm seated in front of a yellowish wall inside my apartment, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. On behalf of all of us at Respectability, I am delighted to welcome you all to the first webinar in our 7-part series titled Leaders of the Future. But before we get into the harder to say session, a few quick housekeeping items. First, this webinar has live captioning and an ASL interpreter. Make sure that you are using gallery view on Zoom to see the interpreter with the slideshow. And you can turn on captions with the CC button on your Zoom window, or you can also view captions on a separate window using the link that is being placed in the chat box on Zoom. For our Facebook friends, the link is in the video description. Second, we are taking questions. This is live. If you have something to ask myself or Pam, use the Q&A box on Zoom or leave a comment on Facebook and we will be notified of that. And finally, to answer the question that I get asked most often, yes, we are recording this webinar and we will be sharing it on our website by the end of this week after myself and my lovely fellows clean up the captions and embed them in the video. The PowerPoint will be available to download immediately following this session as well. We are excited to have 22 plus promoters who are helping us, partners who are helping us promote the series. And you can find out more about all of them at our website. And we especially want to thank our generous funders for this series, the Jewish Community Foundation of Los Angeles and the Charles and Lynn Schusterman Family Philanthropies. Without their support, the series would not be possible. And we want to thank David Berg Foundation, Beverly Foundation, and the Diane and Guilford Glazer Foundation for their support of our general Jewish inclusion work as well. I keep saying the word series, and that's because we have 6 more webinars after this one. The next one is actually this Thursday, and so you can make sure that you are registered for all 7 of these free and fully accessible webinars. More information is at respectability.org/Jewish-events. So why are we doing this series? It's pretty simple, actually. Including people with disabilities is something that more than 90% of Jewish organizations say they want to do, yet we have found through our surveys of the Jewish world that fewer than 15% of Jews can identify a single leader with a disability in Jewish communal life. This series is a complement to our previous series, which trains organizations, and it's designed to introduce Jewish lay leaders with disabilities to topics and skills that will help them lead as volunteers and professionals in nonprofit organizations. Basically, we're trying to close the gap between the fact that people don't know leaders, but we have plenty of potential leaders out there, and hopefully you're among them. So as I mentioned, I'm Eric, and now I'd like to turn it over to the wonderful Pamela Schor to introduce herself and get us started talking about social media.
Amazing. I think we can stop sharing the slides then.
I think we can as well.
Beautiful, thank you. So hi everyone, I am Pamela Schuler. I am a comedian and storyteller, and I travel the world talking about disability and inclusion and mental health, which I do through sharing my story of growing up with a whole lot of Tourette syndrome and obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety, and learning to love it and embrace it and even find the funny in it. I work with schools and colleges and religious communities and corporate teams and kind of everyone in between. I also have a master's in advocacy and policy, a postmaster's in executive coaching, specifically in leadership through the digital age, which is coming in handy today, where we did a lot of work in that program on social media. Most of my social media focuses on a few areas: disability inclusion, mental health, comedy, and dogs, if we're going to be really honest. But dogs are my self-care, so they also kind of fall under the category of mental health. I am a white female. I'm on Zoom, you can't tell, but I'm 4'6.5". I look a little bit like I just did 3 weeks of shows at summer camps, because that's what I did. So I feel a little bit like a disaster today. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt, a black shirt below that, and I have long blonde hair and blue eyes and noticeable Tourette syndrome in my face. So I'm winking and kind of making funny faces at any given time. I also want to acknowledge that typically I love making PowerPoints and slides to go along with the things I'm talking about, but recently my Tourette syndrome has been affecting my hands. And so I've been using mostly voice to text these days. And so I was not able to create a ton of slides. I've got a great visual, and my goal is to really describe everything I'm talking about in bite-sized pieces so that it doesn't feel too much like we're missing out on slides. So whether you are an entrepreneur or a performer or a nonprofit, no matter what you do on social media, your job is to tell a story. And that's not going to change, right? The way you build your brand and the way you make real impact is by great storytelling. The notion of storytelling has not changed, but the way we do it has. It's more in short bursts now than ever before. Like in Hollywood, when you're making a movie, you're making a 2-hour movie that's going to be played on a big screen in a theater. But on social media, you're making something that is good enough for someone to stop scrolling through their feed and to watch on their phone or their computer or to listen to. But there's a lot of info to help make that less overwhelming. There's so much research out there and so many tips and tricks to help. Let's see here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything to the chat. Okay, no. So I'm going to be talking about social media as a way to connect and tell stories and get your brand out there. And I know Eric is then going to be talking about accessibility on social media and making sure that we're as inclusive as we can. So kind of separate topics, but the same umbrella. So I will be honest, my social media following is not massive. On Insta and YouTube, I'm considered a micro influencer, which I hate that phrase. But it means that I've got somewhere above 10,000, but not in the big number range. But I work closely with a lot of accounts like BuzzFeed and a few big YouTube accounts that have millions and millions of subscribers. And so I've learned as much as humanly possible along the way, so much so that I've got a friend with millions of subscribers, and I just sit on his office, like I sit in his office for hours and just listen to him and his team talk so I can learn as much as I can, because this absolutely is a learning curve. All of this is a learning curve. So I bet most of you have social media. I bet you're already using it. Probably not all of the social media accounts, but I am assuming you all have at least one. So you're already doing it. The shift is how now you're going to be doing it for your brand and organization, right? So it's a shift. It's a shift in the way we think about it. You're already using social media. It's just about now using it in terms of your brand, your organization, and your goals. The biggest shift for me when I started focusing more on performing and mental health and inclusion on social media is that my accounts then became public facing. So the goal of my social media was no longer to connect with family and friends and people from college, but instead to connect with everyone I could and to build a brand and to get my name out there. So I had to be intentional about shifting my goals. Every action on social media sends a message. When you are trying to use social media for business, for connection, for your brand, every action sends a message. And I don't just mean your posts, I mean everything you like. If you notice on Twitter, you like something, sometimes other people can see that you like it. Who you follow sends a message. What you share sends a message. So everything you do on social media is sending messages, even if you aren't the creator of it. So I'd love if you all drop in the chat your favorite social media platform. I think I should be able to see. Oh, there we go. Okay, we've got Instagram, Facebook, Instagram exclamation point. Twitter, Facebook and Twitter. TikTok, yay for TikTok. Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Amazing. Mighty Networks. I don't know that one as well. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. So it sounds like an interesting mix. LinkedIn. Oh, good. Shout out for LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Okay. So the biggest ones are Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Pinterest, and Snapchat. There are more, but those are the biggest. And we're going to kind of focus in on those today. I wish I could do every social media platform that exists and talk about it. But I also, will be honest, I know very little about Pinterest. So I rarely am going to mention that one. That one is elusive to me. Oh, and LinkedIn, amazing. So each social media platform has a different audience, different reach, and different tools. Some quick examples. Facebook and YouTube are both prime places for ads. due in part by their high earning user bases. And at this point, Facebook is more brand focused at this point. If any of you have teenage children or work with teenagers, they likely either don't have a Facebook anymore or they have it, but they're using it really to connect with brands. The majority of Instagram and TikTok users are millennials or Gen Z, signaling the strength of bold, eye-popping content that like oozes with personality. That's where the young people are, although I'm on that one too. Pinterest, which I said I'm not going to mention after this, but that's really like social shoppers. That's where they hang out. And LinkedIn is user base is educated, making it a hub for in-depth industry specific content that might be more in-depth than what you see on other social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter. So Eric, I'm going to ask that we pop that visual up on the screen now, and I will describe the visual as well. So I wish I could say I created this because I saw it and thought it was absolutely brilliant and does a great job of showing what I wanted to kind of bring to life. So social media channels explained, and this was created by thepixel.com. Each social media platform is different. So here's an example. Let's talk about donuts. Facebook, I like donuts, right? We're connecting with brands. Twitter, I'm eating a tasty #donut. YouTube, I'm watching donut videos. LinkedIn, my skills include eating donuts. Instagram, here's a photo of my donut. Snapchat, short video with my donut. Reddit, discuss our love for donuts. And TikTok, I dance and sing with my donut. So we'll leave this up here while I talk a little bit more about each of these. So Facebook is a great network to share opinions and feelings. That's often what I use mine for. They have stories on Facebook, but we don't see a ton of people using those. The number of people watching stories isn't huge. However, stories on Instagram are huge. Facebook is more brand focused with our younger generation. Your posts can be a little longer. Although I once heard a comic say that the worst thing on Facebook is when you have to click read more. Right? How many of us do it? How many of us give up before we hit that point? And it's great for community things. So I live in New York City and I joined like 7 Facebook groups for my neighborhood in New York so I can see what events are going on and I check it every day. Twitter, short and sweet. Most users are on Twitter for updates and news and quick digestible content compared to crafting headlines. So I compare it to like crafting headlines for a blog or the headline of a news article. Twitter users appreciate witty tweets, but make sure you're still incorporating your brand message and take advantage of trending hashtags on Twitter, also on other platforms. But on Twitter, if you use the hashtag that's trending, your tweets are more likely to be seen by other people and it will boost it for you. Instagram, anybody can be a photographer. That's what Instagram's all about. Also, I remember when Instagram came out with the stories, I remember like trying to figure out what was going on. And essentially when you post on your wall or your feed, your wall, is that what it's, I'm dropping the word out of my head, but those are there forever. And right, those are like curated photos or the ones that you always want to live there. But the stories are like easy, you can do it without thinking much about it. They go away within 24 hours. They are not permanent. So the stories came from people wanting to post without it being so permanent, with less of a commitment. And while what you write on Instagram is important, it's not the most important. The most important is the image. And Instagram, although has a ways to go, they have gotten better at adding accessibility. I know in the past like 2 months, they've added, oops, sorry, that's my dog. Sorry, they've added captions that are automatic with the click of a button. As I yell at my dog, I am so sorry. Okay, someone is opening my garage door. Okay, that's better. YouTube is more about video sharing. I love YouTube for partnerships, interviews, more long form. It's a bit harder to build a following on YouTube because people have to subscribe or else it's pretty unlikely you'll show up for them. But it does, there is a creators fund that offers funding. So you can make money on YouTube and TikTok. And then TikTok. Professionally looking videos on TikTok don't do well. I love that. When brands try to post something on TikTok with like a perfectly professionally produced TikTok video, it doesn't get clicks. What gets clicks are homemade and fun and quick. So that was kind of a brief, we can stop sharing the screen. Thank you. So that was kind of a brief overview of each platform and my dog. I have Tourette's, so if it wasn't the dog barking, it would have been me. Let's just be honest. So every platform has different tools and different ways that you can use them. I love stories. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I do stories every day. It's not a huge commitment and it gives people an insider look at things and it doesn't take so long. But there's also reels, which are short form videos on Instagram. Live features, you can use live features on most platforms at this point. I love going live on YouTube and Instagram. Probably don't do it as much on Facebook and Twitter because I don't think they quite get the base. So it was a lot. That was a lot of a quick overview. So that was, yeah, someone, I saw a chat come in. I want to make sure. Okay. So that was a lot. It was a quick overview, but I want to make this clear. You can't do it all. You can't do every social media platform. Don't try. The best advice I was given was to pick a few and sink your time and energy into a few, like 1 to 3. Yeah, that was advice given to me that no one is doing amazing on every social media. So I'm on a lot of them. Like I'm on TikTok, but I barely ever post. I more do it to see what other people are doing on TikTok. I really have decided to sink my energy into Instagram and YouTube as my top 2. My website, which isn't social media, but it includes all of them. And then I also tweet every day, but that's really more for like just fun. I'm not sinking energy into Twitter. And Facebook I use as well, but I definitely am putting way more energy into YouTube and Instagram. So once you've picked your focus, it's about refining your social media strategy. So I always think through audience and goals and platform. Those are the 3 things. Once you know your audience and goals, you can pick your platform. Example, if you're trying to reach grant funders, not sure I would start on Twitter. I might start on LinkedIn, right? Or even Facebook. But if you're hoping to get the word out about a new app for teenagers, TikTok. Go to TikTok. Meet them where they are. And then who are you? So think through audience who you're trying to reach. And then goals. I always think through goals in 2 ways. The first is strategy. Am I trying to increase awareness, build an audience, increase engagement, drive traffic to my website? What are my goals? And then my other set of goals are goals that I can accomplish. So I try to do things every day to connect with other people on social media, which means comment on another Instagram post. I try to do that twice a day, or retweet someone who I admire on Twitter. I try to do that every day, just so it's not just about my content, but I'm able to support other creators that I think have a positive voice and I want to connect with and I want to stay in touch with. And so often, I quoted a tweet on Twitter recently with someone that I love from Broadway, who I think does really incredible work with inclusion and mental health. I retweeted him, but I quoted the tweet and I added like my own take on it and my own like, yes, I love this. And he followed me. So it's often a great way to connect with other social media creators. So I have thought a lot about what goes viral. I've been lucky. I've had a few things go viral as I've been, doing social media stuff. So I was thinking about what goes viral, and I did some research into what that is. And the algorithms like content that people are sharing and talking about. So I think of it like a snowball. If people start it, it gets a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. It'll go. Those are the things that go viral. But I found someone named Jonah Berger, who is a researcher who looks at why things catch on. And this person has narrowed it down to 6 reasons. People share or talk about content that adds to social currency, right? We share things that make us look good. Think of the ice bucket challenge. I don't know if you all remember that. Did I just age myself a little bit? But the ice bucket challenge raised money for ALS, and it was getting shared because people were like, I'm doing a good thing and I'm on social media. And as much as some people hated on that, it raised millions of dollars for research. I think some people think that like, yeah, in some cases you're not really being an activist on social media, but sometimes you really are. Triggers, stimuli that prompt people to think about related things. So when I say triggers, I'm not saying it in the sense we've been hearing it more often, but Jonah means it more in it makes you think about related things. So it connects. Emotions, when we share, we care. So think about how many times you've seen a viral video of someone who got into college, their dream school. Or sometimes when I can't sleep at night, I look up people's dreams coming true on YouTube. Do this, please. Pure joy. Or like puppies and babies cuddling, also pure joy. But I love seeing people's dreams come true. So I found videos of like people finding out they got into Broadway or their first choice college or even sports, even though I don't like sports, finding out someone got onto a sport thing they really love. Like those are things we share because they give positive emotions. Public is the next one. And if other people are doing something, it must be a good idea. Those are types of things that go viral. Practical value. That's the fifth one. People like to pass along practical, useful info. Think the TikTok pasta. Drop in the chat if any of you made the TikTok pasta? Maybe not. Do you know what it is? Okay, so it is tasty. Okay, good. I love this. By the way, 8 months ago, if you said TikTok pasta, people would have no idea what you were talking about. For those of you who don't know, on TikTok, somebody shared a pasta recipe, and you literally just throw in tomatoes, garlic, and a brick of feta cheese in the oven and then mix it all with pasta. And it's so easy and so simple. My 65-year-old mother called me and said for family dinner night, she was making the TikTok pasta. She's not even on TikTok, but her friends were talking about it. That went viral because I am the worst cook. I know something is done cooking when my fire alarm goes off. That's how I know. So this is something even I can do. TikTok pasta. That was the reason that went viral. And finally, stories, but like info that travels under the guide of idle chatter. So kind of random stories that usually also then pull in the other things I talk about. So some lessons I've learned as I've made many missteps on social media on my journey. Your private self often becomes your public self. I am so lucky that I didn't have social media until college, besides MySpace. How old am I? I know. But if you had given 14-year-old Pam a Twitter, it would have been just a disaster. I would have still been editing that. So I'm a little bit lucky, but I still regularly scroll through and see, is there anything that I posted that is no longer something that I want public? Or, I find posts that are just like about a test in college that like, I just don't need floating around there. So is there anything that you don't want public anymore? Do a quick scroll, delete it. Let's see here. And then test and evaluate. A friend of mine who has a huge following told me something that I love. He said that he treats social media like throwing wet spaghetti at a wall and what sticks. So he'll try a bunch of different things and see, oh, well, this got 1 million hits. That's what stuck. And then he'll do more with that. And I love that advice. And most of the social media platforms give you opportunities to, have I way talked longer? I'm almost done. I'm wrapping up, Eric. I'm sorry. Am I still okay? Okay. Most of the
Keep
social
going.
media. Okay.
You're doing great.
Most social media things give you analytics. They're not super in depth, but it's enough to see, I look at Instagram and I see, what did I do in the last month that got replies? What did I do that got shared? Things like that. And that helps guide me. I'll maybe talk about this more, but I'll come back to that. So what's working, what's not? Throwing spaghetti at a wall. And my final thoughts, engage with content creators that you admire. They don't have to be anything in common with you. I often admire content creators that are just positive, kind, wonderful people who I think are making the world a better place. Sometimes that's athletes, even though I have nothing to do with, I don't even know the word, athletics. And be authentic, right? People on social media want to see what makes you, what makes your organization. What is your voice adding into the mix that's positive? So even when I'm posting silly videos with dogs, which I'm doing a lot of, you're for sure going to get some Pam in there. And when I do a vulnerable post, I think really hard of like, what's the message? I've lived for 30 some years with a disability. I have these moments that I want to write about on social media where hurtful things have been said or a doctor said something really awful to me. But I always make sure I really reflect on it so that when I am posting, it still fits within my like, what did I learn from this? What will I do moving forward? And even sometimes when I can work in humor, I do that too. Second to last is promote your socials. This was a learning curve for me. At the end of my shows, I never used to promote my socials. And another comic who I respect was like, yeah, you gotta, even if it feels weird, promote it. So with that in mind, my Instagram is at Pamela Comedy. That's also my YouTube and my Twitter and my website. Please follow me at Pamela Comedy. There's almost always some humor in there. And then the final thing, which I think this is just, I added this earlier today, but like be kind. There's so much awful stuff going on social media. Oh, yes. And also follow respectability. I was kind of making a joke, but yes, I figured we'd all actually post that at the end. Be kind. Whatever you do, whatever your brand is, you know, being kind is being inclusive. I mean, it's not always, it's not enough, but it's be kind. There's so much trash on social media. And I think the reason why, so my YouTube has gotten a number of followers and subscribers. And I think it's because I don't let there be meanness in the chat, even to each other. I make sure it's a really safe, healthy place where we celebrate individuality and differences. And I want to see more of that on social media. I think social media gets a bad rep, and there should be a movement to make it kind and wonderful. And if that happens, it really becomes a resource and a connection tool. So with that, I will pass it back to Eric.
Well, there's no way I'm gonna be able to follow that, but I will try my best anyway. We are going to talk a little bit about, there's a lot of stuff about like this. Pam talked about like the what to post. I'm gonna talk about how to make it accessible to people with disabilities. So there are two big points on that that I like to talk about. The first one is alt text. And I actually made a demo video, which I'm going to pull up and share now. So once you create the post with an image in it, you'll hover over the image, click edit, and then click alternative text on the left. You'll notice Facebook creates automatic alt text, but it's often quite useless. This is better than it usually is, but we can do better. So we'll click custom alt text. And for this image, I wrote collage image, advertising, respectabilities, 2021 virtual summit, including registration link, dates, and photos of 6 diverse people with disabilities, the Hollywood sign, and Capitol Hill. Click save, and you're done. Once you add an image to your tweet, you'll see an option below that says add description. The first time you do it, Twitter will give you a screen that describes the feature and how best to use it, and give you the option to click sure or no thanks. Click sure. Because we use the same image for Facebook, I will spare you me typing it all in. Click save and you're done. So once you've chosen an image to share and applied filters or any other edits, and you're at the screen where you write a caption, go to advanced settings, and at the bottom of the screen, go to write alt text. And again, describe the purpose of the image, then tap done, back, and share. I realized the second I hit play on that video, but I forgot to explain what is alt text and why does it matter. So let me do that now. Alt text basically it describes the purpose of the image so that people who are blind or low vision and use screen readers can understand what the images you're sharing are about. So like, for example, that infographic, the graphic that Pam showed earlier, in our PowerPoint, I added alternative text so that people who want the PowerPoint read to them can understand what's in that image without having to see it, without being able to see it. And the other thing that's important for social media accessibility is captions. And captions on videos are very easy to create, and that's because YouTube does it for you automatically. Now, granted, YouTube will get you a first step. It will basically create a rough transcript, but then it's your job to go in and fix it so that we're not craptions, as some people of Twitter have called them, they're captions. And so basically, YouTube's caption editor is changing all the time, so I don't have actually like a video to show about it, but I'm gonna put a link in the chat box to YouTube's support document. And that will have all the information on how to add captions. And the best thing about it is that you don't even need to actually put the video publicly on YouTube to use the caption editor. You can even you can just upload the video privately. YouTube will automatically create the captions. Then you can edit the captions and download the SRT file. And if you don't know what that is, you don't need to. Your video editor will probably know what that is. And so you can add captions to any video. In fact, we're going to be adding captions to this webinar using YouTube's caption editor later this week. So let me put that link in the chat box. And so again, the two big things are that captions are, the most important thing to know is that captions are not just, captions and alt text don't just help people with disabilities, they help everybody. Because a lot of people don't watch videos with sound on. Like if you're back in an office environment and you want to watch a video discreetly, you can do that with captions, if there are captions. You can if there are not. And I think there's like a large majority of people will not watch videos unless they are captioned. If they're playing in silent mode. People hate when videos autoplay up with volume. And so lots of social media platforms like Facebook play videos on silent basically by default. So with captions, that makes it a lot better. And alt text on your website will help you with your search engine optimization. So this stuff is most important to you because it helps people with disabilities, but it helps everybody as well. And with that, I think that covers the basics of accessibility on social media. The two most important things are captions and alt text. And I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you have any questions for me or Pam, you can put them in the Q&A box on Zoom or on Facebook. We are monitoring the comments on the Facebook live stream. So while we wait for questions to come in, I'm going to ask Pam our first question, which was, so what is some social media that you think is doing really well right now? What's like a post that you were like really like think
of mine, like a post that I was okay.
Yeah.
So when I post, I think in terms of like what's just fun, like what's just me having fun, and what's me getting my brand out. Well, it's all me getting my brand out there, but what has a specific message that I'm trying to send. So I have two recently. I during COVID stayed with my mother in Ohio for 3 months, and I went to boarding school as a kid. So this was the longest I've ever lived with my mother in Ohio, and I am also a nightmare of a child. So my mother is very type A personality, and she has everything in a specific location in our house. So I every night she would go to bed and I'd like move one thing, just like mess with it. And it was like little, like I'd turn the knives upside down, or I'd switch two pillows with each other because everything is so deliberate. And it caught on. Her friends loved it. People were following it, being like, do more of that. So I have stuff like that. And yes, I acknowledge I'm a nightmare. And then I also, I did a video with someone named Dr. Mike, and it was really about, it was both funny and about having a disability and growing up and what that was like. And he's such a good friend of mine that it was a really comfortable conversation. And we talked about the way doctors sometimes treat people with disabilities. And it was just a really in-depth, beautiful conversation. And so I think that so far was probably my favorite thing I've done, um, like my favorite video on social media.
Okay. I got a question in the chat box for me about image descriptions for Facebook and Instagram posts in addition to alt text. So I think image descriptions are helpful for Facebook and Instagram. For some posts, if you like doing if you're posting a link on Facebook or Twitter and it comes with an image with a link, you actually cannot, using Facebook or Twitter's tools, edit the alt text for the image that pops up with a link. So in those cases, what you'll want to do is you'll want to put image descriptions with the post. So basically what I do is I do an image description : and then whatever the alt text would have been if I could have edited it myself. I think alt text itself is sufficient if you have the option to do it. But if you can do, you can do both. You can do alt text. And if you can't do alt text, do image descriptions. So that one is that. It is not looking like we have a lot of questions. I guess we covered everything. I guess we did everything that people wanted us to cover.
If I could make a suggestion to the audience, this is Matan Kach, the series creator, and remember that these experts are here to help you think about steps as you create your own brands as leaders in the Jewish world. So this does not have to be a technical question on the things they've already shared. What do you want to know? What do you want to hear from our panelists to help build your brand? And put that in the Q&A box. And I will start by saying, Pam, Pamela, sorry, can you speak a little bit to the question of, if one does not yet have a brand or a following at all, where might you start? Where might step one be?
So I think that there's a million different answers to this. So I would probably say step one is to think through those questions I asked. What are your goals and who do you want to reach? And then pick the social medias you want to join based on that. So again, I wouldn't start with all of them. So I think that Facebook is a really easy entry point. Actually, they're all pretty easy to join. I think YouTube is probably the biggest commitment. So I would suggest narrowing it down probably to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter as one of the kind of the first four. I think those are the easiest entry points. But again, what are your goals and who are you trying to reach? If you are a synagogue and you have a demographic that's primarily kind of parents and up, TikTok is not going to be the one you start with. LinkedIn probably isn't going to be the one you want to start with because it's more connection, right? So maybe it's a group on Facebook or so I would think of like, first, who do you want to reach and what are your goals? Are your goals to have 10,000 people on your social media, or are your goals that people just know what events you have coming up, right? Those are two different goals. Or your goals that you get the word out there about your new website. So think through your goals and then from there, pick one or two that you think you can really dive into.
Okay. So I'm going to take a question that we have in the chat box about how do you get more followers on social media and how you increase your followers. I'd say you can either do it for paid advertising, that's one option, but the organic way of doing it is to post stuff that people like and want to share and want to engage with, and you engage back with them. So for example, we have a practice that when anyone shares something from our page or likes one of our posts, we invite them to like our page on Facebook. And that's a quick, easy thing you can do to get more engagement and get more followers. Lots of other things you can do. Retweet people, mention people, engage with people on social media, and it makes a big difference. So
I'll echo that. I'm not a huge believer in promoting because I think when you sink money behind it, it doesn't often help. I don't see numbers change. I think it's really hard to get a promotion really perfect where you see numbers change. So I love it. Engage with other people. Also, social media platforms reward regular posting. So if you've got a page or an account and you post, once a week, do the same day every week at the same time. You can also Google what are the times people are most on Facebook? When are they most on Twitter? When are they most on Instagram? And schedule things around that time. But social media rewards regular posting. They don't reward constant posting. So don't, Twitter, that you can do as many times a day. But Facebook, I suggest one great thing a day, or a few great things a week. People who post constantly all day, those are not getting boosted, but they reward consistency on most social media accounts.
I will say that looking at our analytics, like I know that our peak time is like 8 p.m. Eastern. So we always schedule all the good stuff around 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's just an example. You can look at your analytics and see what times your posts get the most engagement and use that information to your advantage.
And you can also see the age demographics so on Instagram, you can see the age demographics of people following you, where they're following you from. So at one point, because of the stuff I did with an influencer, I had a lot of people following my stuff from other countries. So one day I went live at 8 p.m. and got a ton of messages being like, that was our middle of the night. So I had to kind of restructure a little bit to offer things to the places people were following me.
Matan motivated a lot of questions, which is awesome. So we have some more questions now. I'm going to answer one from Nicole in the Q&A box, which is about starting to present yourself on more professional sites like LinkedIn. Basically, what I would suggest is that for a couple of key things with LinkedIn to think of, make sure you have a good professional profile photo, make sure you have a cover photo, make sure you have all the fields that they want you to filled out. Make sure you have details on what you've accomplished. If you have any like links to work samples or stuff, make sure to include those on LinkedIn. That makes a big difference. And yeah, and make sure that your LinkedIn is just up to date with all the latest things happening with you. And LinkedIn is like a great way to find work possibly. So.
And I think something important to add, if it's okay, Eric, if I can jump in.
Go right ahead.
There are social norms on different platforms. So on Facebook, people don't just friend people who you don't actually know, but on Twitter, it's totally fine to follow someone you don't know and have never met. On Instagram, it's totally fine to follow someone you don't know and you've never met. And I think the same on LinkedIn as well, to connect. So, just being aware of so often I'll get Facebook requests and I'd just be like, only people I know, that's kind of how I do my Facebook account. So just being aware of that. So on the three that I just listed, go make a ton of connections, go follow a ton of people on Twitter, or, sit down and follow 30 or 40 people that are doing great content, and that'll give you ideas as well, or content that you want to kind of be working on.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So, we kind of covered a lot of these other questions about how much posting is too much. It depends on the service, is what Pam and I basically said. Matan wanted us to mention that we have an upcoming webinar on getting a job using social media and other methods. So make sure that you sign up for that. Is it better to post personal stuff or not? And what about tackling tough issues? I think it depends on who you are and what you're trying to accomplish with your social media. If you are trying to get a job, I'd say maybe stay away from more personal stuff, possibly, or controversial topics. If you're an activist and you really are passionate about something, post about it. I think it depends on who you are, what your audience is, and what you're trying to accomplish. So, for that type of thing. Let me see. Pam, any of these questions that you see that you want to answer? Or?
Well, someone asked a question that we didn't answer, but I actually think it kind of does lead to something interesting. Someone asked if I know of other comics with disabilities. And I do, in part because of social media. It was a great opportunity for me to connect. I am working on a project on YouTube with a content creator with a disability out of London right now. We're working on something together. So I've also done a lot of shows of comedy shows that have been specific to, disability nights or things like that, which I love. And I love getting to meet other people. But social media has been a huge tool in being able to connect with other people who are doing similar work or not doing similar work, but also just happen to have a disability and be a comedian. So it's a really great tool for connection.
I see a question about the best way to connect on LinkedIn. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm going to infer that you mean reaching out to potential employers. And so for that, make sure that you're professional, make sure that your profile is completely up to date before you start reaching out to people. And you can just, I mean, LinkedIn lets you connect with anybody basically and just send them a message. It gives you a template, but I would customize it. I would add like, hey, if you both went to the same school or if you have something in common, make sure to mention that when you're on LinkedIn, when you're messaging someone, because connections are one of the best ways to start networking, make networking more effective. So
Someone told me if you're messaging on LinkedIn, think of it like a cover letter.
I think
Like
that
be
makes a lot of
very
sense.
professional, list kind of who you are, why you're reaching out, and say, you know, I'd love to connect. And if not, is there someone else that might be willing to sit down with me for a few minutes?
Absolutely. That one. And so I think we've gotten through most of the questions. So Matan, if you want to, I'm going to give everyone a last call for final last minute burning questions for us. And seeing nothing, Matan, if you want to wrap us up, that would be great.
Hello, everyone. Isn't technology grand? And wasn't that a fantastic session? I want to thank Pam and I want to thank Eric for all of the material that they offered and all of the insight, all of the wisdom. I want to thank our funders who made it possible and who are passionately connected to the notion that more of you will become the leaders of tomorrow. I want to bring to your attention our National Disability Speakers Bureau. I know from the questions that came in the Q&A that many of you are in fact speakers in our bureau, but if you are not a speaker and you might be interested in becoming a speaker, and right now, if you are in the LA area, because that is where we are recruiting Jewish speakers, please reach out. Email Jake s@respectability.org. That's my colleague Jake Stimmel, and that will begin a conversation. But also because I know that some of the registrants on here are professionals. I want to make sure that you share this wonderful content with budding leaders in your own community. And remember, it will be available online, fully captioned and with a transcript within a week or so. And that you could send all of that and just make sure that they're shared. And if you have someone that you think is really at that next step along the way, or you think you are at that next step where you're about to think about a career as a leader, as a nonprofit professional, especially in the Jewish space, and you are a person with a disability who has completed or has about to complete a college program or a master's program, then please check out our Jewish Inclusion Fellowship. Our Jewish Inclusion Fellows come to us and they learn all about how nonprofits function. They learn all about how Jewish organizations funding. They work with us on the important work of our Jewish Inclusion Department for a few months. That means they get to work with me, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. You can decide. But then they also get specialized job coaching, resume writing, and our goal, since we're not a job placement organization, but a change organization, is that we are training the leaders of tomorrow. So if you want to be one of those leaders of tomorrow, then please check out our National Leadership Program, specifically the Jewish Inclusion Fellowship, but we also have opportunities in nonprofit management, which is really development, and in policy and in civic engagement, in communications, and in Hollywood and news media. If you do decide to go the communications route, you will have the joy of being supervised by our own Eric Asher, whom you heard from today. That's going to get us a flood of applications in the next 24 hours, I am sure. So please, and I close where I open, unless there's another slide that I'm supposed to speak to. No, this is exactly where I wanted to be. I close where I opened by saying that we want you to create or be the leaders of tomorrow. We've put together what I think is a wonderful set of skills. This week, we will have a wonderful set of professionals representing a nonprofit CEO with a disability, a nonprofit board chair with a disability, and a professional at JPRO, the Jewish Professionals Organization, talking about how nonprofit works. Then we will follow up with an absolute expert on individual prospect fundraising, talking about individual prospects, followed by representatives of three major foundations, those being the Schusterman Family Philanthropies, the Weinberg Foundation, and the Grinspoon Foundation, giving you a how-to about how to fundraise from foundations. And then we will have a wonderful panel working with Leading Edge, who are the experts in Jewish leadership, and the NJHSA, who are expert in Jewish organizations, talking to you about some of that LinkedIn, how to get a job, how to work in the sector, some of those questions that our panelists were playing with. Today, we will really focus in on July 13th. July 15th, we will teach you how to be an advocate, especially if you are, on the junior side of your career, but want to have an impact all the same. And then we're going to circle back around and update our accessible events webinar from last year, because the world has grown by leaps and bounds, and there's even more to know than there was at this time last year. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you again for our panelists. If you have not registered for the whole series, please do. And thank you also to Joshua Steinberg, who really put all of this together and has been the leading force behind this series.
Thank you very much for everyone who attended this, and we will see you all on Thursday, hopefully. Bye.